How great would it be to get up close and personal with the beauty industry heroes we love and admire, and to ask them, how did you learn to do what you do? I'm Chris Baran, a hairstylist and educator for 40 plus years, and I'm inviting all our heroes to chat and share the secrets of their success. Today's guest is a friend, but I want you to know a little bit of her street cred here is she's a business owner, stylist, educator, and an advocate for the LGBTQ plus community. She is a multi-year NAHA winner and finalist in the Men's Hairstylist of the Year category. She's a Redken artist and a key member of the Redken Brews team. She's had a vision 10 years ago of creating a gender-neutral salon with gender-neutral pricing, and hence the opening of Logan Parlor in Chicago, Chi-Town. She's a key contributor to the Hair Has No Gender movement. So let's get into this week's head case, JamieDeGrazia. JamieDeGrazia. I mean, I don't know. It seems like forever since I've seen you, even though I'm sure it's been in the dark, so on. But my friend, we've spent many a time together at shoots. We've spent many times together hanging out at shows together and being compadres. So welcome to Headcases. It's great to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
Well, it's just, it's funny, when in doing these, sometimes you get to meet people that you're meeting for the first time and you're just becoming friends with them. And then there's people like you that I know really well. We've had our laughs and our cries together and all of that stuff. So it's really a pleasure to have you, and I'm really excited. And I hope you're noticing. Are you noticing anything like that? And if you're listening in, you're probably wondering what they're talking about right now. But you notice anything interesting about my look today?
Like how great that Logan Parlor hat looks on you.
Yeah, check out that Logan Parlor hat going on there. I still one of my faves. And you notice anything else?
Oh, you're bad to the bone with your Hair Has No Gender.
Yeah, I got my Hair Has No Gender badge on and everything. So I want to talk a little bit about that. What's that?
The inclusive barber pole.
My inclusive barber pole. For those of you who are listening, my hat that I have on is a present that Jamie gave me quite a while ago, and I wear it all the time. And it's a Logan Parlor hat that's got the scissors on it and her name on it. So it's always nice to have something and wear something that is a friend's, and it was a gift. So. And the button that I'm wearing. Well, by the way, I don't know if you noticed, but I had to wear my favorite pub, Bonehouse, because it matches the hat. So I had to be color coordinated with that. And the pin that I'm wearing is Jamie is the founder of Hair Has No Gender in the U.S., and she has the rights to it here. And the badge is a barber pole with gay pride stripes in it, and it says "Hair Has No Gender," which to me that's always been a key tagline of mine that always bugged me for years that I opened this when we had the salon. Was we always just charged by the minute, and it had nothing to do with whether you were man, woman, or whatever. And because oftentimes, I don't know about you, but I find that sometimes men's hair took longer to do because it was so much more intricate with the fades and so on. But that's a whole nother story, and I want to leave that for down the pike. But it's great to have you on, girl, and I miss our hanging out time together. I want to take you back to but first of all, for the people that don't know you, I always always want people to know why the hell you got into hair. I mean, that's the first thing that people always say to me is like, why hair? What got you into it? So what's your story on that?
That's interesting. Well, it was the only thing I remember ever saying I wanted to do. When I was little, my favorite aunt would come over, and she had this green Camaro. It was a drop top, and she just looked like she had the best job ever. She'd pull up in her Camaro, get out her kit, come and do everyone's hair at the kitchen table, hang out with our family, eat dinner, and then leave and go to another family's house and do the same thing. So nice. She did hair She called it Your Place or Mine Hair Design. And I was like, that is like
Oh,
so cool. And she married her husband. They opened a restaurant, and I started working for them when I was young. And
at the restaurant.
um, my first job I did from dishwasher to when we opened a second location downtown. I ended up running it for a while, but I did every job inside the place. And one day I was like, I can't do this for one more day.
And I want to pause you there for a second before you move on, because that's a key moment.
I can't serve another drink to anyone.
Now, was it the drink or was the rowdy drunk that you had to serve?
It was just all of it. I was like, I just can't do this. Yeah, I used to think, oh, I'm going to open a restaurant. And then I was like, that lifestyle and those hours. And
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I really just want to get really good at hair and do that. Mostly because of the lifestyle and the artistic component of it. I wanted to create, not just, order take, right?
I understand. So what? And Nanda, what was how many years were you? How many years were you in the restaurant business? And then was it still the dreams of your aunt that Your Place or Mine that pull you? And a really funny thing that Your Place or Mine was one of my former business partners. We broke up our relationship as salon owners, and he went on his own, I went on my own, and his place was called Your Place or Mine. So I find that really interesting, even though it was funny. Always just his place. It was no other Your Place in there. But how long was that stretch before you said, okay, it's hair?
Yeah, 10 years. So 18 to 28.
Oh,
and I went to beauty school when I was 20, and my eyes and my hands weren't matching, so I would get really frustrated that I would see these things, I'd try to create them, and I just didn't have. That's how I fell in love with Redken and Know Why and you and Principal Base Design, because it allowed me to, have a plan for where I wanted to be to how to get there. So I was like, well, I'm making more money at the restaurant, and then I'm not frustrated, because I'm not creating what, I can't create how I want to.
Yeah.
So it was just easier to hang out in the restaurant. And I was like, I got to get good at this.
Yeah.
And that's when I
the
started
path. Tell me about the
New
path.
York.
Oh, sorry. I jumped on you there. I apologize. Tell me about the path from when you were in the salon, and tell me about the path that it took you through to the point where you went, okay, good. I now I know what I want to do. Now I'm going to teach.
Oh, yeah. So, well, I think it mostly started with just wanting to learn first. I had a hard time learning. I did some apprenticeships with different salons and educators locally, and I just didn't feel like I wasn't, maybe it was my learning style and their teaching style. It just was a disconnect between still being able to understand how to get the end result that I was looking for. Right. So
right.
That's how I fell in love with Redken. And their education. My first time at the Exchange was Leah Freeman and Patrick and Brian Washburn teaching color Know Why. And then I realized how much I took from that program. I was like, wow, I could actually give a professional opinion. I can make good choices now. It was really something. So then I was like, coloring hair felt safer than cutting hair. Right? Fix that a lot easier than I can cut my way back out of something. So then I was like, I really want to make sure I'm grounded in cutting hair, because that's really where my passion is design,
Yeah.
So that's why I just became obsessed with the information and just cutting the wire. I took it so many times, and then eventually I think going to the Exchange so much, they were like, you should think about becoming an artist. And then I did, which is awesome. But I really was in love with the information because of the creative freedom that I've gotten from it. So I was like, I really want to be able to explain this to the apprentices in our shop. So once the shop was open, I was like, I really want to be able to give this information back. So that's why I kept taking it so many times, so I could learn it myself, be grounded, and then share it with others. So
Yeah,
That's
that's
kind
good.
of where we're at now. Yeah.
It's interesting that, when you bring up that, and and I'm sure there's many academies that are out there in the world, but you and I frequent the one at the Redken Exchange, and I think that's the most beautiful thing about being an educator is just being able to. Everybody always says, "When I see the light go on in their eyes, that's all I need. You don't have to pay me." And I say, "Well, no, look, I always want to be paid. Number one, the first thing I learned is that if you want to be able to retire someday, you have to get paid." But as that aside, I think that it's more than just the seeing a light bulb go on, because sometimes the light bulb goes on, but then they don't do anything with it. And I think what you experienced is what I think that as educators you always want, is helping people to understand. And if they can understand, then they can rationalize it into any equation. In other words, if I learn how to do a bob on properly on X lengths, then I can shift the lengths, I can shift the angles, I can do that if I understand all the foundations and principles behind it. And I know that's what you do, and I know that's why you do that so well. So,
Thank you.
Yeah,
honestly, that's what I've learned from my time with facilitating hair cutting and knowing, how sometimes people, you don't know what you don't know until someone shares with you. That's where I'm at now with Hair Has No Gender. I see like someone struggling, like honoring or understanding, gender and hair and the things that we're up against.
Yeah.
And I just want to share that so people can, feel compassionate for people who might be, experiencing like discrimination, not on purpose, but like what are we doing inside our businesses? And going and teaching hair cutting, I get to see a lot of things, and through that is where, and through my own business and through my clients is where I've come up with some things, some practices to create more inclusive spaces. So it's pretty cool.
When you started your business, was it? Because I remember talking to you. That was a long time ago, and I remember chatting with you about that. And excuse me. I know that you said that time. I don't think that was fully rooted when you started the salon. I mean, I think you had a foundational element about it at that price. Yes. But would you say that you had it all together then, or did it evolve as you went along? And I'm talking about the business side and all of that went along.
Oh, yeah, it's been a big evolution. The only thing that we implemented was gender-free pricing from the beginning, because I had, a lot of queer friends that didn't, that might have been female, and then I'm shaving their heads. And at the other salons I worked, it was like, can we just charge them for a men's cut? But then that's also, like I'll go into the store and they're like, "Ma'am, do you know you're in the men's department?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm fully aware. I'd like to buy these Doc Martens." Like it's so silly. Or paying for a man's manicure because I don't want to paint my nails, because they come off with doing hair. So just we opened like that from the beginning, but by having more queer people visiting the salon, the more we're learning about how we could do better to better serve everyone. Like we only had one bathroom, right? For a long time, I'm like, well, it's gender free but we only had one. We didn't have to make that change to be like, let's have a bathroom for everyone,
Yeah.
So some of the things
I want to go back. I want to jump back here for a second, because I know for all the people listening and watching right now, there, even though that whole gender-free pricing has started, once it's established in a salon, it's not going to be hard to change, but it's the fear of the change and how complicated they think that it could be. So when you're talking about, just explain, and there might even be some people out there that are going, well, I don't understand the difference of what I'm doing right now, what I'm doing right now, and gender-free pricing the way that you're defining it. So how do you, what are some ways that you can define gender-free pricing?
Well, you can do anything besides charge based on someone's gender. And in
Mm.
multiple states, Massachusetts, California, I think New York, it's illegal. So there's a gender discrimination law. So barbershops, salons, tailors, the cleaners, they all have, and in Illinois, I'm going to advocate that we have it too. There's a bill that needs to be passed. So I'm already working on talking to our state reps and try to get that passed. But really, it's just charge any other way on time, on your talent, on the length of the hair. So that's what we do. We correlate a time and a length, and have starting at prices. Because what's happens is, it's discrimination for, queer people who might not identify, like non-binary folks, but also
Mm-hmm.
like the pink tax. Like women are paying more usually for things, and even though it might take more time, then let's charge for our time. Let's just not charge it because you're a woman. It costs more.
Right.
Like any other reason other than, someone's gender identity, really. Or technique, like my razor cuts or my clipper cuts might cost more because it takes longer to use those tools. I would stay away from charging based on texture or gender, because I think both of those things tie back to people's like intersectionality that didn't define how they pay for something, in my opinion. You know, so more so like hourly pricing, length of hair also just kind of comes back to correlating to timing, just like density could as well versus texture, like my hair is abundant. Doesn't matter if it's straight, wavy, curly, coily. It's just
Right.
abundant. But what I see happening in the industry is, hourly pricing. Sometimes it's under an hour, and we have 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 60 minutes, and then an hour, 15 to 75 minutes for like a transformational cut. So when someone's cutting all their hair off and making a huge change. So that takes into account just like, parts and labor, consulting, and styling education, before and after photos, so it's not a rushed experience. We really want to meet people where they're at, and we can't do that unless we spend some time like understanding their desires, right? What they want for their hair and how they want to express themselves through it. So being able to not do 30-minute haircuts, I can't get there. I can't get anyone there in that amount of time. I can't even consult and wash someone's hair and feel good about what I'm about to create in 30 minutes.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's what I've always loved about this is that, it's, I think not the first, but Chapel Salon, I know Chapel out of the UK, they have that parts and labor kind of pricing. They charge, when you come in, you're charged from the time you walk in the door till the time you leave. And I'm sure it's not for if you're using the loo or anything. Even though later I want to talk to you about the cling that you have for your bathrooms, because I think it's really clever. Mm. But it's about that the time that it takes you to get to the finished look, and I can always find it. I find it interesting when even on stage, when you would ask a group or in a classroom, you would ask people, what determines how much you charge, and inevitably the last thing to come up was the time. So if something takes longer, that's what we charge for, is time. That's where we get paid for what we do. Is everybody that's in our kind of business, it's how much can you do in an hour.
It's like the Uber drivers or the taxi cab. It's like how far you're going. If there's traffic, like there's it's not just a flat fee. It's a starting at flat fee, but then from there it goes on. It's like, well, if there's traffic, it's going to take longer. So then now it's a time thing. And if you have, more bags, like you have an abundance of hair, like I didn't realize I was going to have to carry 10 bags, and so you were going to go from the standard 18 foils to 128, to get this look. So yeah, it makes sense. I think a lot of what I'm learning now is that we've just done things the way we've always done them. I'm like, that's what my aunt did when she pulled up in a Camaro, so now that's what I'm going to do. So I'm like, well, that doesn't serve. Like, my aunt served our family, right? She didn't serve the queer community, which is what I'm trying to do. She didn't have a brick and mortar. And just looking at like the way that we do business, just because that's the way it's always been, doesn't mean that's the way that we have to go forward, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking at now. Like, in what ways are some of these practices not serving, or which ones do serve? Like, and let's celebrate those. So just kind of taking a look at our industry as a whole and seeing where we can make some shifts, because we've been really separated by race and gender forever.
Yeah. And I think it's great that all of a sudden, I mean, I don't think we're going to get there overnight, but what I find is that I think everybody's being very sensitive right now, whether it's motivated by whatever reason, but it's good. And I have to say that, because I've heard you use the word queer, like, I think 3 or 4 times already here. And because, I'm of that age that I'm a baby boomer. So it was just the habits that baby boomers and Gen X's are going to have are different than the kids that are having right now. So I think you have to do a little research. And in researching this, that what I thought was so great, is at one time queer was a slur. And I loved how the LGBTQ community embraced it. And you said, well, that's going to be our slogan. We use that for us. Yeah. I thought that was really clever.
To me, it's always different. Like, when I've heard people, like, in my family, say queer, what they're trying to say is, like, they don't have a word for, like, ooh, that's different, whether it's interesting or weird, or they're not sure how they feel about it. It's always, that was what queer meant, like, to us growing up. Like, oh, that's queer. Yep. Like, that's not that it's not right, but it's just like,
it's different.
So I never really hated the word, but I do know that it's been, like, derogatory. But I love that our community is, like, taking it back and making it a more of a celebratory term. Really similar to the terrible N-word, some groups of people aren't allowed to use that word, and others take it and, own it. And really have great love for it. So it's just, our communities, and it all depends on what is behind it. Is it love? Is it hate?
Yeah. So, I think that's a key word right there. Darn it, if our world could get along a little bit better. Yeah. I think that's
there's a lot of things happening, lots of shifts for equality and human rights right now. And it's not just right now, it's been this way forever, like, somebody said something to me recently, like, well, it hasn't been that long since women have had the right to vote. And I'm like, yes, it has. But also, like, where does that come from? We've always been fighting for something, like trans rights. People have been fighting for that since Stonewall. Like, when was that? So it's not new. It's still ongoing, and it's ongoing because we haven't gotten fully there, And there's things that take us backwards, like all these anti-gay laws that are happening now. Like, we gotta keep going until everyone has, equal human rights. So I think a lot of folks think more for someone else means less for them, So I think if we can cultivate more oneness for everyone, that would be helpful.
I think that's what's so beautiful about our industry too, is our industry, and it may not be for everybody, and everybody's always going to say, yeah, but I know one person that. But what I love about our industry, is the beauty and wellness industry, is that it's so inclusive and so welcoming to the most part. I'm sure we've got some people out there that are not, but you can't paint our
separation. It's not. It's marketing, it's not a purpose, like, disconnection. It's just, everyone, just like the queer people want things, the men want things specifically for them. Like it's stereotypical, but like things are gendered for, marketing purposes, and also people want things that resonate like with them, whatever that means. Like, is that be gender or is it sexuality, whatever it is. But
Yeah.
in our industry, I feel like we're lucky enough to have so many, celebrate so many different intersectionalities of people, like our industry as a whole. Like most people have hair, right? Most people have skin and nails. Most people want to groom and feel good and, express themselves through these things. So I think we have
Yeah.
the opportunity to really, we have the opportunity to touch all different kinds of lifestyles and hair types and backgrounds of people, Um, so that's what I've been doing a little research on, like microaggressions, like accidentally,
On
unconsciously
what?
being
Sorry, I missed that.
microaggressions.
On what?
It's called microaggression, which is
Microaggressions.
the subtle act of like unconsciously or accidentally like offending someone based on their one part of or multiple parts of their intersectionality, whether it's like race, gender, ethnicity,
Yeah.
background. Like someone saying in the salon, like, "Oh, are you sure you want to cut off your hair? It's so pretty." Like that is
Uh,
like, like that could be really harmful to someone
yeah.
who really wants to cut their hair off, and now their hairdresser's like, they're the one that is unsure, right? Like things like that that I've been noticing that we need to talk about so we can, maybe change the way we do or, give our professional opinion. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter that I would never shave my head, but if that's what you want, I can give you the sickest fade ever, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
not put my own fears kind of in the way of the hair that someone else may want.
It was interesting what you said there, and because I don't even know how to term this correctly, so I'm just going to say it. I'm sure that most people that would say that, like you said, it's because of their fear, not what you want, number one. But number two is, and the most important part is to understand they didn't intentionally go out to try to offend, but not thinking about what they do still can. And that can build up a barrier between the relationship that you have between you and your client, and all of a sudden they don't trust you and want to go back to you anymore. And I think that's
them, and it really has nothing to do with them. It's my own fear. A lot of times I find people be like, "Well, I'm here to teach a barbering class, right? Redken will send me in. I'm here to do this barbering class. I'm all excited." And they're like, "Oh, I don't do men's cuts." I'm like, "Well, is it the clipper you're afraid of, or like men in general? Like, would you shave my head? Like, what's the core of this situation?" So that's kind of fun to see like where some of the stuff actually comes from.
Yeah. What's the response when you ask that question?
They laugh and they say, "Yeah, I don't know. I'm scared of the clippers." It's never like really a gender thing.
Yeah, because I find, and just because I'm also in the business of beauty schools, and I travel all over teaching haircutting as you do, and I think we're in an era for about the last X number of years. You picked a number where everything has been long and curled, and we have people coming into our industry that's what they've been brought in the middle of that era, where they're making money from it, and we know it's all going to shift. We're just growing our hair to cut it, and we're cutting it to grow it. So, how do it's that whole fear of short hair in general, and I think that when you compound that with and what was microaggressions, that saying things unknowingly with maybe intent, with not with bad intention, it could help to ruin a relationship. This episode is sponsored by the Salon Associate Accelerator from trainersplaybook.com. Are you struggling with the time and cost of associate training? Do you feel like your salon is running you? We'll get your associates on the floor, all with 90% less time from you, so you can get back to building your business. Get them world-class design, finishing, color, and client care skills they'll use every day for the rest of their career, while you focus on realizing your vision. Go to trainersplaybook.com and get the Salon Associate Accelerator. And now, back to the show. So, Jamie, in teaching the classes on Hair Has No Gender, and if they have they don't know what to expect, what can they expect when you come in to teach?
So it will be a blend of technical skill. Short hair sculpting is super, I'm super passionate about technical skill and helping people use their tools in different ways, right? Or getting really comfortable short hair sculpting. And then the whole business aspect, like how to make your environment more inclusive. So how to be an allied space, like safer space advocate. And to me, what that means is just making sure that everyone and anyone that walks into your space is feeling, safe and emotionally and physically, but like also safe to have creative freedom with you as their artist and leaving with the outcome of the hair that they want. So what does that look like, and just giving ideas about looking at your business where it's at now. What are things that no longer serve, or what are some things we can implement, and kind of doing like a little audit on how, inclusive are we, and are we, accidentally, could we be accidentally, discriminating by having a gendered menu or having a gendered bathroom, or, charging certain ways, or not having like an ADA compliant business, or like what are the things that we could do better, basically, and just having a conversation around that,
So, and it's part of, I'm sure, in our business, it's always about the consultation. So, like, do you deal differently with the consultation in this regard in the classes that you teach? Give us a little insight into that.
Yeah. So in the salon, we always, sit eye level on a stool and have like a moment with each guest. Like, I want to understand their likes, their dislikes, and some of their, a lot of people have haircut trauma, or like what they're afraid of, or what they really want. Just, there's like a lot to unpack, so I try to do it as fast.
If you're not watching, I was giving her the timeout because I didn't want to step on her, but I want you to go back and say that word again, because you talked about, what was it? Haircut trauma? Is that the word you use? Yeah. Explain. Give us a little more about that.
Oh, well, the last person that cut my hair did this, and I never gotten a good haircut. I'm like, well, that's a great opener, right? Like, someone sits down and that's what they say. Like, my stylist, I had to coach someone last week. They were like, well, she said no one makes her happy. How was I supposed to make her happy? I'm like, well, to me, that's like challenge accepted. I'm like, no one makes me happy. I'm going to be the one that does. That could freak a new stylist right out,
Yeah.
So
but even to help them, go ahead.
Yeah, how do you coach someone to say that just means that this person needs to be heard, right? That person just needs to be listened to, and you can be that person. Let's ask them a series of questions that we can get to the answer to deliver them what they really want. So that to me, when someone says something like that, I'm like, oh, great. Now I have the opportunity to serve them better, right? So,
and I think I hear you saying that when they're saying that, it's not directed at you. And it's just your story that is going to say, oh, I don't want it to be me. And that's what compounds it. And then your brain can't think and you can't be creative. But so all you have to do is just say, that was then and this is now. And I've got this amazing opportunity to ask questions to gain the trust of that person, so they do trust me and I can go to more in-depth training. And that's why I love what you're saying about how in-depth you go with the consultation, and you're charging for that as well, because that's time in. And and that's what really knocks out all of the things that that they don't want, and all the things that they do like, and you can add that in, and you compass that with safety by feeling good there. You're golden.
You got it.
Yeah.
And really, like the consultation, like having a gender affirming consultation, to me just means like honoring someone where however they, whatever their pronouns are, and honoring that, and not letting like preconceived notions create the shape. So
Yeah.
whatever that looks like, I always just break down, and I always start, ask for consent. Can I ask you a couple questions? I'm going to ask you quite a bit, because I really want to make sure that I give you the look, that you want. So I have a bunch of questions. Is that okay? And people will be like, yes. But if you just start asking, they're like, do they not understand what I want? Like, but I'm like setting them up, right? It's all in the setup. So, but breaking down, even like on the short, the perimeter all the way around, sometimes perimeter, people just think it's the length, but on a short haircut, it's like, it's the fringe. Okay. Well, what about the fringe? Is it symmetrical? Is it asymmetrical? Is it blunt? Is it piecey? Is it, is it cut around the ear? Is it over the ear, or is the hair over the ear, or is it cut out around the ear? There's just like so many elements of just the perimeter to discuss. So I just like dive deep into it and really tailor and customize, the end result to whoever's in the chair, which is so fun, because it's like, new creation every time.
And so for the people that are listening and watching here is because that, I think what you said is so great, and that does apply, because I'm sure you have straight people and people from the gay community that are coming into your salon as well. And when you say, and it's a gender neutral conversation, do you teach specific things on what does make it a gender besides the hair part? Is like proper conversation? How does that go?
Well,
How do you?
Yeah, sometimes folks, you could either have like a gender affirming consult, which could be for someone that's in transition, or is like non-binary, and they want to express that, and they want to, because people think men's cuts, like that's short hair only, and women's cuts is long hair only. So sometimes you just have to like take those ideas and throw them out the window, so you can get to wherever you need to go for this person in your chair. And other times you really have to consider that, like someone may be transitioning, a trans man might really want a short, tight fade, and it's a look traditionally what they would consider to be like a men's haircut, so you really have to channel whatever it is that your guest is wanting. So you have to be, open enough for them to share that with you, so the right questions to ask, and how to ask them in a way that might not be offensive, or
give us an example, like how, because I find this super interesting. Because I know that fear factor of people don't want to upset, and they don't want to say the wrong thing, and then can they just say nothing, and then it goes south because you're not saying anything?
Yeah, like sometimes I'll say, well, how short is too short? And they're like, well, I don't want it buzzed. So then I'll say, okay. And then I'll show some pictures, and I'll say, do you mind if we look at, male models? Or, do you mind if we look at this? And they might be like, no, like if someone will tell me I want it to look like a men's cut, like in my mind, I'm like, well, I know what that traditionally looks like. So now I can start looking at pictures like that. Or they'll be like, I don't want it to look like a boy's cut. Like people have these ideas in their head.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, what does that look like to you? Does it look like this? Is it softer than that? Like what?
Yeah.
What part of this don't you like? And sometimes they can't put it into words. So really, the different elements, like, do you want it to be, tight, or like, I just try to use descriptive words and just not gendered, because anyone can have short hair and anyone can have long hair, but like, how do you want it to move? How comfortable are you styling it? Like trying to catch the vibe. So images are really helpful. So sometimes I'm shocked by the images that people will bring in, and I'm like, oh, cool. That's not what I had in mind, but this is great.
Yeah. Yeah, I always found it interesting when people would bring in a look that was, I'm a short haired guy. So, I mean, you show me a picture of short hair and I'm in there like swimwear, I just think it's amazing. And I always think that I am shocked when somebody brings in something that I find really super cool, but I would be shocked that that person brought in this picture of that hair, and I'm just cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over it and can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, super exciting. Sometimes we just have to check though, because it could be like they like the color, right, and not the shape or something. So I've had that happen too. So it's all about the elements and perimeter, silhouette, and texture. Like, what do you like, and then asking the right questions around each element, and that's how you, I think, can consult in a way that has nothing to do with gender, and it's completely tailored. And and there's certain things people will want for like affirming their gender. Like, there's things we might have to do for people. Like trans men might be growing in facial hair for the first time. Can I teach you how to trim your beard? Has anyone taught you? Have you ever seen the barber? Like, would you like a straight razor? Or there's some trans women that will come in that don't know how to like handle the curling iron. I'm like, don't sweat it. Neither do I. Let me call in D'Angie because he's the one that has all the iron experience, So sometimes we don't have to have all the answers. We just have to be a good ally and have a resource.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not the person for you if you want to do extensions, but Christine is. So let me introduce you to Christine. So
and it's a partnership then, right? It's not that I'm worried about losing my client because Christine's taking it over. It's a partnership within the salon.
Yeah, it's a collaboration. That's the best.
Yeah. What I love about what you're saying and that what you're teaching is it's just really about questioning, isn't it? It's about the more questions you can ask, that the more information you're going to glean from the client, and it can take that fuzzy picture that you're forming in your head down to more of at least a picture that's becoming clearer. It might not be an 8x10 glossy, but it's going to be clearer of the image that you have to create, right?
Yeah, it's really quite nice for me and for the guests, So I like clarity. I like clear agreements. I like that. So, and then I know that I'm doing the best that I can. Through the clarity.
I want to ask a question that I think that people that might not be or don't are really afraid of. How do I get into gender neutral salon? And I don't know if this is a fair question. You can tell me whether it is or not. But do you ever discuss their where they're at in their life, if they're transitioning or anything? Do you ever have that conversation?
Yeah, great question. Great question. Yeah, only if someone wants to share. Like, I would never ask anybody about their, sex life or their gender identity, or, like that's really has nothing to do with it. But mostly, like, it comes around, like sometimes you can see someone might be growing in facial hair and they didn't have it before.
Right.
So you can ask questions around, is there anything else you'd like for, me to do today? Is there anything else you want to talk about? Just like opening it up and creating space for someone to share. But I would never poke around and ask personal questions like that. Like, is there anything else you'd like to learn about your hair, skin, or, like really, and then it could be tell all Tuesday. And then you're talking about, all kinds of stuff with them, but really, that doesn't really have a factor. That's why I was saying, like, the more I can understand about like what they want shape wise and how they want to express themselves, that's up to them. Like, a gender affirming haircut could be, long hair for a guy, like it just depends on who you are and what you like, I guess.
Yeah, it's what I really love what you said. I love what you said with anything else that you want to talk about. And I'm not saying that everybody always says, well, we're part-time psychologists. No, we're not. We know how to help people, but we're not qualified to do that. So that's not certainly not what I'm talking about. But what I like about what you're saying here is it can open up a dialogue, and that can just, even if it's just the first time they say no, and you ask it again the second time, it leads to the trust, and I think that's when people will open up to you. And sometimes, while I don't think that we don't get up in the morning and say, hey, let's have Tell All Tuesday today, because I'm right at the point of when you're doing this, I'm running about 3 minutes behind and I've got another client waiting. Yeah. However, it could open up a whole dialogue of where you could help that person.
Yeah, and it could be not hair related, People are going through all kinds of stuff, so you can give you resources for other things, Yeah. We have a huge network with all the clients that we see and people we touch, and you never know in what way you could serve. I mean, obviously through hair is what we're doing, but if someone is like, I'm having a hard time, you might be like, hey, I have this resource, or have you thought about this, or so that's part of it. People are sharing a lot with us. I think the more they share, the more open they are. They'll have you ever considered going blonde? They might be like, absolutely not. And I'm like, well, I think it would look great on you. If I opened with that on our first date, they'd be like, you're crazy.
Yeah. But you bring up another good point. Whether it's, I'm not, and this has nothing to do with gender, because that's what we're talking about, but it's opening a dialogue for something that they don't see. Mm-hmm. Because it's just, have you ever thought about going short? Have you ever thought about asymmetry? Have you ever thought about a short fringe? Or I could see you with a short fringe that would be either A, B, or C, and give people choices, and then say, look, I don't have, even when you say, look, I don't have time for this today, but this popped into my brain, and I was just thinking about you with your fringe, and I think it would be amazing on you, and I've got like 3 options that I could run by. And I want to tell you, I don't have time to do it today, but I just want to throw it out there. And I want you to go out there, think about it. And if you think it's an absolutely stupid idea, we'll let it go. If you think it's a wonderful idea, start to capture some pictures and images, and let's talk about it the next time. And let's book a little consultation beforehand. And I think that getting people to be intrigued, so that, I think if I talk about cutting a fringe, a bang, depending on your terminology, and if I do an eyelash skimming brow, it could be, what did you call it? Hair trauma. It could be hair trauma. But if I talk to you about it 6 weeks ago or 2 months ago, it's this whole drama, this whole thing about, like, if you ever think about buying a car and you say, I want to buy a Corvette, and you put it in your brain about, I want to buy a Corvette, suddenly you see Corvettes everywhere where they weren't there yesterday. And if you talk about a bang or a fringe, or you talk about red hair, or you talk about balayage, or you talk about blondes, and you plant that in their brain, they see that everywhere. And then all of a sudden, it's not trauma. All of a sudden, it's fit in. I think that's so great.
It's interesting. I think that a lot of folks, when we do these short hair programs, they just aren't used to seeing the opportunity that short hair has. Normally it's like 30 minutes, I got to jam it in a processing time. But I gloss people, I do pops of color, I do smoothing treatments. Like, I treat short hair just like most people treat long hair. If anything, I think I have more opportunity because it grows so fast, and I can do things faster and more intensely to it, because, there's less of it. So the fixes are faster, the bigger, bolder impact. There's just like so much more that I think sometimes people are like, I just have to get the short haircut done, when really it's like, that's just the beginning,
Yeah. You couldn't have given me a better segue right there, because we kind of work together on some of the NAHA things and so on. And I've got some of your pictures that we're going to bring up here in just a second. And because you were talking about short hair and how you love that. And I'm a short hair geek too. So I want to bring that up, and I just want to talk about the images because this is the ones you were finalist and one you won for NAHA, and I want you to just like to talk about what was the feeling like when you transitioned? Because I know you had done photo shoots before. You didn't go in there cold, but what was it like for you having the experiences? Because we did those shoots at the Exchange. What was the experience like, and what was, let's talk about the experience first of creating those looks.
Well, it's really like creative freedom, like having the canvas that was completely open, like there was nothing off the table, like limitless possibilities. So cool. And then to be able to like know that I wanted to tie them together so they spoke to each other, like what elements can I utilize to make them speak together, but also making sure that I had like 3 different skin tones, 3 different hair types, like really honoring different elements of people's, characteristics and how to like tie those together as well, So really just having to tell the story was the most exciting part. The hair was just the the medium to which the story was told. So I think that was the best part. My personal experience is like the artist.
Yeah. Jamie, I just want for the people listening, what I want to just do a quick description here of kind of what that, if you can imagine that's going on. There's 2 collections here, 3 images each one. And on the first collection, and this the top collection is the one that you were the winner. You won NAHA Men's Hairstylist of the Year. And the images are, one is on very, very coily hair, and one is on coily to curly, but it's the shapes that you put in, and the other one is straight. And what I want the audience to get is how the one look is almost, if you could just imagine an arrow, so it's pointed, and that would be at the crown, and then this dead stick straight lines that are out of that. And I think that's what helped you win on this, was how clean, even though 2 of them are on texture, one was on straight, but there was this juxtaposition that happened where the coily hair is straight perimeters with this incredible texture on the inside, and the straight hair is, you have to imagine kind of a mohawk that's standing up with a fade that's on the side and carvings in it. And it was done so beautifully, how you can have straight lines that end up looking like curves, etc. And on the bottom 3 that you were with finalists in the year after, and there's again 2 that are on coily hair, but the gentleman that it has almost like a point brought out asymmetrically over his left eye, and then roundness behind it. So it almost looks like in the back you've got the top of a derby on, and then you have this triangle in the front of it, and it was so amazing. And then on the middle shot is all curved, but the lines are so clean. So it's like that mohawk again, but it's a curved, rounded thing with a little point on the front. And then I know and that, if I'm not mistaken, the one on the bottom right, that is Keenan, right? He's not only a great photographer, a great dancer, but he was a great model. And those are some pieces that you put in curled, and then added length to his hair to create the elongation in the front. So it's kind of a big quiff in the front, and then some, I always called them in the past tattooing, that hair tattoos that you put in with the clippers, etc. And the looks are just phenomenal on there, girl. So what was the experience like when, I want to take everybody, if you have not had the opportunity to be in NAHA or be nominated, and you're anticipating the win. you're anticipating and hoping and praying, and there's all this great look it's up there. What was that like when they called your name?
Oh boy, it was so exciting. I had a thank you note, like a little speech prepared. You know, it was a big deal. The first year, the year that we won, it was really important to me on this level of, you know, winning men's hairstylist of the year felt not great because of my background of wanting to create inclusion and men. I'm like, I don't even do a lot of men. I do short hair, you know, like it just felt, you know, in our accepted speech, I was able to talk about that. And then next year they changed the category to barber of the year, which also I'm not a barber either, but it was a step in the right direction, you know? So that was really cool. Like, I felt like there was a lot of opportunity to like, the platform to speak about those kinds of things, you know, like because when you're nominated or you win, there's a lot of press related, and there's a big deal. It's a celebration, and I was able to use it, I think, you know, in my opinion, to talk about some of those things with the Pro Beauty Association and during the acceptance speech, which was really cool. But the street cred that came with it was crazy, but the most that I loved just collaborating, like having you as my mentor on it, and then working with Babak with the angles in the way that he positioned their body, then had everything to do with how I wanted the hair to look. Like coming into collaboration with wardrobe and makeup and photography and lighting and like all the elements of the photo. Like hair obviously is what it's about, but all of those other elements really made the hair look good, right?
You know, because it's interesting on there as well. I don't know if you noticed, but there was tattoos on, even though that on the first one you won with, there really wasn't any per se wardrobe on. They just didn't have any clothes on the top, but there was tattoos, and that was Jeremy and Pascal from PJ Concepts that said, look, it's going to add to it if you keep it clean, but you have you add tattoos. And so that was the wardrobe that pulled that all together with. And then Mary Laura's makeup was phenomenal. So I just want to say, Jamie, that it's been great to have you. And I have one more quick question that I want to ask you here. And that is there's so much going on in our industry, but if you could have one wish for our industry, and you could just snap your fingers and it would happen tomorrow, what would that be?
It would be that people can come out of school like ready, more prepared, have more preparedness in all hair types and all technique, you know? So not coming out of school and having so much fear around certain hair types or gender or cutting, or, you know, like having more oneness, I think, for our industry in general. And those that have been experienced out of school for 20 years to be able to also see where like we have some need gaps and stuff. So I would say that like oneness would be my word.
Yeah, good. Well, I'm inclusive on that wish. So, Jamie, I just want to say thank you. I know that with the salon and everything you do, and you've given up some of your time to be out here and help the people that are out there. And I always say, I just hope that for the young kids and us old young kids that are out there watching and listening, that you really did have a great influence on there. But can I beg one thing from you? I always do one quick thing at the end of every program where it's just quick fire stuff, one word answers, one quick sentence answers. Is can I run that by you? And here, well, I'm just going to do it. So let's go for it. Yeah. Okay, what turns you on in the creative process?
What turns me on in the creative process?
Yeah.
Like stillness, like being being able to observe and like really channel and like take in.
And what stifles the creative process for you?
Yeah, not being able to go within.
Got it. An event or a show that you love that you've done? I'm sure there's many, but what's one that a standout one?
I think it was our shoots together. NAHA shoots.
That was a fun time.
Collaboration and what we created was just beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. A thing in life in general that you dislike the most?
Time.
And what do you love most about life?
Time.
Proudest moment of your life?
My life. Well, I've had a couple. I don't know if the proudest. I mean, just recently we hit our 10-year mark, which is a big deal. Being able to save enough money to buy my first home was a big deal. Winning the NAHA award was a big deal. But I think the proudest was leaving, like saying, I can't do this career anymore, and I need to learn something new and get really good at it, and something that brings me joy. Really just stepping into a career change.
Yeah. Things you hate most about our industry?
With segregation and the separation.
A person you admire the most?
Zia.
Person you wish you could meet?
Madonna.
Something people don't know about you?
I'm pretty spiritual.
Oh, yeah, very cool. A month off. Where would you go? What would you do?
What would I do with a month off?
Yeah. Where would you go and what would you do?
I'd go to Sicily and eat and look up my ancestors and eat and drink a lot of wine.
Yeah. Eat with the DiGrazia family. Mangia. Something that you're terrified of?
Spiders. Heights.
So I missed that. What was it?
Heights and spiders.
Your favorite comfort food? Spaghetti. Something in the industry you haven't done but you want to?
Making wigs from scratch.
One do-over.
I want Ellen Lawler and Ruth Roche and Jill Life to teach me everything that they know.
I love it. Something in the industry that you haven't done but you want to?
Like a editorial shoot for like Men's Vogue or something like that.
Okay, good. One do-over. If you could do one thing over in your life, what would it be?
Pass.
Pass. Okay, good. Tomorrow you couldn't do hair. Couldn't have anything to do with the industry. What would you do?
Oh, I can't have anything to do with the industry at all?
Nothing to do with the industry. What would you do?
Probably open like a queer wine bar or something.
Oh, nice. Oh, back to service. Back to service and drinks.
Yeah, I'm going to hang out with, I have to
hang out with the peeps.
Environment, yeah.
Well, Jamie, thank you so much for being with us, for sharing, giving your and for everything you're doing for the community to help to include the inclusivity. I just want to say thank you, and it was a pleasure having you on here, and can't wait till we can get together and have that glass of wine together.
I know. Thank you. I know. I'm going to go look at flights now. Take that month off.
There you go. Let me know when you're going to be in Italy. Rita and I'll join you.
Right? Thank you so much, Chris.
It was a pleasure.
Wait to collaborate again.
Yes.